Coming up on Network Africa, the WHO says a fourth person may have died of Ebola in the Democratic Republic of Congo. South African Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa warns that the country must not become a mafia state. And the International Committee of the Red Cross says the threat of malnutrition is still high in Somalia despite onset of rains. Welcome to the program. I'm Joke Rogers. We begin today's program with a look of stories that made headlines over the weekend.
It's been a long and agonizing wait for the families of illegal miners who died in a gas explosion at the St. Helena shaft in Welcome. In the last week, 31 bodies have been brought to the surface through Harmony's Ellen mine. A further 16 people who survived last week's deadly gas explosion have been arrested, with 27 people now in custody.
Charged for trespass, attempted theft of mine property, and themselves as illegal miners, and as investigations continue, more charges will be pressed against them.
Police say there's no way of knowing how many people have been killed or are still trapped underground, but the search will continue for at least the next week. Illegal miners often go in search of gold in mines that are no longer suitable or profitable for mining companies in South Africa. Elsewhere, Pope Francis appealed for guns to be silenced in the Central African Republic, where the UN says at least 22 people have died in fighting between rival Christian and Muslim militias in the town of Bria. Conducting his weekly Sunday noon prayer at the Vatican, the Pope said he was praying for the deceased and the wounded. Pope Francis visited Bangui, the capital of the Central African Republic, during his trip to Africa at the end of 2015. The clashes come amid a week of intense violence between mainly Muslim fighters from the former Seleka rebel coalition that overthrew President Francois Bozize in 2013 and the anti-Balaka Christian militias who opposed them. Finally, smugglers are cramming migrants onto boats in Libya at a record pace this year. Arrivals in Italy, where rescued migrants are brought, are up 35% on the same period last year. In a statement, the Coast Guard said 2,121 people had been rescued altogether from 17 vessels between Friday and Saturday morning. Rescuers also retrieved the body of a dead migrant. The video released by the Coast Guard showed one migrant floating a lifesaver as officers came to his rescue, while another one, visibly shocked, hung on to the bow of a ship.
The World Health Organization says a fourth person has likely died of Ebola in a remote northeastern part of the Democratic Republic of Congo. This brings the overall number of cases to 37 from 29. According to the WHO's Congo spokesperson Eugene Kabambi, out of the 37 cases discovered since early May, 2 have been confirmed as Ebola. 3, including the latest death, are considered probable and 32 are suspected. The country's health authorities are also monitoring 416 people who came into contact with sufferers and have dispatched mobile laboratories to the zone to quickly test people who display symptoms. The affected areas' extreme isolation has helped contain the highly contagious virus spread through a lack of telecommunication. A few paved roads and a shortage of thermometers have hindered the response. In North Africa, Tunisian security forces have fired tear gas to disperse hundreds of protesters who are trying to take over a gas pumping station. This comes as weeks of unrest over jobs and funding in the country's southern provinces escalated into violence. Protesters briefly forced the closure of the Vanna pumping station, one of several oil and gas stations impacted over the weekend, after the army allowed an engineer to shut it to avoid a confrontation. The Defense Ministry has warned that it will use force to protect and retake southern oil and gas facilities. Tunisia is a small oil producer with an output of about output of 44,000 barrels per day.